Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com, on Roku, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, gambling involves great risk. You could lose it all. Now, I have a pick video up here online for Week 3 of the NFL. The games I'm making predictions on are San Francisco at Arizona, Pittsburgh at St. Louis, and Jacksonville at New England. Right? I encourage you to take a look at that video. It goes for $6.99. Now let's briefly talk gambling philosophy. Understand, if you're going to beat the casino, you're going to have to break with the crowd. The odds are lined up to give the casino an edge on a public that loves to pick favorites. So let's look at the NFC. Longtime viewers of mine here online, on my other side, Dwyer70905 on YouTube, who track my football picks, know that I personally believe the best way to beat the casino, because of the immense risk involved in picking a sport game by game, is to bet on futures. Right? You want to look at the futures market. Understand, I have a simple belief. In fact, I know this is true for me personally. I'll bet more, a lot more, if the bet I'm betting on is more of a sure thing. Right? If I have a hedge where if A wins, I make money. If B wins, I make money. Right? If I have what I consider to be a good hedge in place, then even if my rate of return is lower, I'm going to make more money because I'm betting more money. Right? Hedges allow you to bet more because your odds of winning are greatly increased. Right? Understand too, I know the pick a side crowd, wants to just roll the dice. They want to get a rate of return of 200%, 300%. Hey, good for them. Right? I prefer hedging, just in the big scheme of things, where if my plan A worked, great, I've made a nice chunk of change. If my plan B worked, great, I've gotten my money back and I've made some money. Now let's talk about the NFC. First, I want you to focus on the futures right now in the NFC West. In my opinion, right, and this is what gambling comes down to, your analysis, your opinion. In my opinion, only two teams have a chance of winning the division. I'm going to eliminate right here the St. Louis Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Right? St. Louis hasn't even debuted their lead running back, Todd Gurley. Understand, the public seems to be a little bit too enamored of St. Louis's narrow victory, and it was narrow, over a Cam Chancellor-less Seattle Seahawks team that was playing St. Louis on the road. The Seahawks and the Rams are in the same division. Jeff Fisher faces the Seahawks twice every year. He knows them. Divisional games tend to be more competitive than outside of division games where the opponent is less familiar. Right? The bottom line is, if you look at the St. Louis Rams, excellent defense. Right? This is Nick Foles' first year with the Rams. There's uncertainty. The wide receivers belong more in weakness protection than they do the Pro Bowl. Right? The running back situation, as we've discussed, is unsettled. Now, how you can expect a team like this to compete against the two viable teams, the Seattle Seahawks, who've played in the last two Super Bowls, and the Arizona Cardinals, who, with Carson Palmer at quarterback, are a juggernaut going back to the beginning of last year. Just do the research. Look at Carson Palmer's winning percentage with the Cardinals, going back to the first game of the 2014 season. In my opinion, only Seattle and Arizona. And understand, while Seattle's 0-2, Arizona's 2-0. Only those two teams have a chance to win the division. So if I can bet on both and have a hedge on just winning the division, I'm not even dealing with the rest of the conference, then that'd be a coup. Well, you have that here. Today is September 25th, 2015. I'm making this video at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Why? Because Seattle right now is a minus 133 to win the division, and the Arizona Cardinals are a plus 230. So, break it down. I'm just going to go over some quick numbers. You can multiply these numbers to fit your risk tolerance. Just using round numbers for simplicity. If I bet $13.30 on Seattle, and if they win the division at these odds, then I get back a $10 profit, right? If I bet $7 on the Arizona Cardinals, and they win the division at these odds, I would get back a $16.10 profit. So, just understand that if I bet $13.30 on Seattle, and if I bet $7 on Arizona at the current odds, then I'm going to make between 10 and 15%, right, in a span of about 3.5 months, because the season's going to end and you'll have a winner in the middle of January, right? I can make at least 10% on my money with that bet, right? If Seattle and Arizona are going neck and neck for the division at the end of the season, I'm covered if either happens. And I'm making a rate of return that I'm telling you a lot of people are paying their investment advisors right now to make on Wall Street. Let's talk about another team. Right now, the public is picking big favorites to win the NFC. A lot of people like the two teams who played in last year's NFC Championship game. As I said earlier in this video, Seattle has played in the last two Super Bowls. The team they played in the NFC Championship has Aaron Rodgers. They're the Green Bay Packers. You're paying a rich price for these teams, right? All I'm saying to you is there's another team out there. Might not be as good as Seattle. Might not be as good as Green Bay. But might have a better chance of getting home field advantage in the NFC in the playoffs. Understand, you're not trying to pick winners. You're trying to pick situations, right? You're trying to get leverage. You're trying to pick a team that the public's ignoring, that you're going to get huge odds on. So then later you can hedge the play, and you're covered because of the leverage you're getting. Right now, there's a 2-0 team, the Atlanta Falcons, right? This week, they play the very injured Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. How injured? If we closed our eyes before week 1 and thought, who are the most valuable players on the Dallas Cowboys? The most valuable, I'm telling you, many of us would pick quarterback Tony Romo and wide receiver Dez Bryant. Look at the pay scale of the Cowboys. Aren't these two of the highest paid Cowboys? Doesn't the team view these guys as the most valuable members of the team? Understand, Tony Romo, whenever you think of him, however empty his hands are, his fingers are of Super Bowl rings, understand that Tony Romo, simply put, is one of the hardest players to replace in the National Football League. He's like Aaron Rodgers. He's like Big Ben. Whatever the numbers, understand, Tony Romo knows how to stay alive in the pocket. He has that ability to just slide in the pocket, get that extra time. Where are you going to find a replacement with those skills? Folks, you're not. Also, let's just talk experience. Tony can close his eyes and know where Jason Witten's going to be on the field. Those guys have chemistry. Where are you going to find a backup with that level of chemistry with Jason Witten? Let's also look at the elephant in the room. Not every starting quarterback job in the National Football League is equal, is it? Some positions come with hotter seats than others. Right? You know the press is going to be on you. You know all eyes are going to be on you. You know the team has a tradition. Hall of Famers have come before you at the position. Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman. If you're the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, folks, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. Right? People are going to know who you're dating. Didn't you know that Tony Romo went on dates with Jessica Simpson years ago? Right? I'm telling you, you could be a talented player and not be ready for the level of public scrutiny that being starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys entails. So, Atlanta's playing Dallas this week. The line is close. It should be close. Dallas is injured. If this Cowboy offensive line is all that, as the public believes, why are Darren McFadden's numbers the way they are? You tell me. Now understand, if Atlanta beats the Cowboys, did you know that their next two games are at home against teams that right now are below 500 with inexperienced starting quarterbacks, right? Atlanta would play the Houston Texans with Ryan Mallett, the Washington Redskins with Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta would do so at home. Understand, if Atlanta beats Dallas this weekend, there's a chance Atlanta might start the year 5-0. If Atlanta doesn't beat Dallas this weekend, there's the possibility that Atlanta starts the season 4-1. You're getting Atlanta right now to win the whole thing at greater than 20-1 odds. Worse yet, look at their division. The Saints. I'm telling you, many people believe that the Saints have no chance to win their division. Is Drew Brees healthy or not? Do you know with certainty? Jimmy Graham? Oh, that's right. He plays for Seattle. The Saints look awful. I would argue the Saints can't win that division. The other team has a rookie starting quarterback. Now, I know Tampa won last week. I'll agree, if you're a hardcore gambler, you have to pay very close attention to Tampa Bay. Tampa has some wide receivers. Jameis looks like he's very talented at quarterback. But wow, I got to tell you, I normally don't pick teams with first-year quarterbacks in futures pools. I just don't. Right? So, there's a reason why Tampa had the first pick in last year's NFL draft. So if I exclude Tampa, and if I exclude New Orleans from winning that NFC South, then that leaves only two teams, doesn't it? It leaves the Kelvin Benjamin-less Carolina Panthers. When you heard Kelvin Benjamin was out, did you really feel that Cam Newton had a shot to win the division? And it leaves the Atlanta Falcons. Right? Think about it. One or the other. Now, my point to you is you don't have to be Nostradamus. You don't have to be Einstein. Why? Because, believe it or not, the casinos, as of today, 2 games into the season, right, has both teams at better than even money. I could be clueless and make money in this situation. Because understand, if I bet the same amount on Atlanta and on Carolina, right? If I bet $100 on each or $10 on each, if either wins the division, I make a profit. Atlanta's going off at a plus 110 to win the division. Carolina's going off at a plus 175. Right? For more sophisticated gamblers, because of the spread between those two picks, you can put a little bit extra on Atlanta, even out the expected winnings, and make a profit if either wins the division. Right? So, sometimes you have to break with the public. Let me also point out, too, that see the storm clouds emerge before the storm takes place. Right? Many people neglect futures until later in the season. In my opinion, you need to take opportunities when you see them. Because the public's asleep at the wheel on the Atlanta Falcons, a team that's already 2-0, a team that's already beat teams like the Giants on the road. And understand, unlike the Cowboy victory over the Giants, this wasn't even a divisional opponent. Right? Atlanta was really behind the 8 ball because they don't know the Giants that well. They came back and won that game. That opens the door for us. Keep an eye on the Atlanta Falcons. You're getting much more compelling value than you are with Seattle or the Green Bay Packers. Let me say this too about Green Bay. Pay attention to their defensive problems. Right? According to some metrics, Green Bay right now has a defense that's not even ranked in the top 20 in the conference. Right? Think about that. So, just be careful. Review your options. Let me say this too about the Cowboys. I know many people are going to talk about the Cowboy defensive effort against the Philadelphia Eagles. Understand, there's something called chemistry. That's developed over time. You can be a superstar when you join a team and you don't quite know the personnel, you don't quite know the playbook. You're not going to be as good as you'll be when you learn the playbook more and you actually learn what your teammates can and cannot do. The Philadelphia Eagles right now are too new, aren't they? New quarterback, Sam Bradford. He barely knows his teammates. New running back, DeMarco Murray. You've seen the drop-off in his performance. His backup, Ryan Matthews, new to the team. Think about the wide receiving core. Deshaun Jackson, oh, that's right, he's long gone. He's a Redskin. Jeremy Maclin, oh, that's right, he's gone. He's a Kansas City Chief. Right? You have unfamiliarity all over the place. Cowboy defense looked good against that unfamiliar team. Right? Is there any unfamiliarity between Matt Ryan, an experienced quarterback, and Julio Jones, one of the highest paid wide receivers in the league? Think it through. Without Scandrick, if the Cowboy secondary stops Julio Jones, how are they going to stop Roddy White? How are they going to stop Hankerson? Right? Is this Cowboy defense going to look as good against the Atlanta Falcons as they looked against a divisional opponent who they're familiar with? Let's face it, they know Chip Kelly because they played Philly twice last year. Right? So this weekend's game between the Cowboys and the Falcons has a lot of intrigue. Just understand, the Falcons are totally in the catbird seat. If they win the game, think about it. If they get to 5-0 by beating the Texans and beating Washington at home after this game, just think back to how many wins it took to win their division last year. Didn't Carolina have the worst playoff record last year? You know, of a team that made it to the playoffs? Let's say the Cowboys win the game. Let's say they rally around the fact that their leader, Tony Romo's injured, and they make Brandon Whedon look spectacular. right? Understand, Atlanta still has an excellent shot to get to 4-1, right? So, I hope you take a good look at Atlanta right now, both to win the whole thing. Understand, it's not that we believe Atlanta's going to win the whole thing, but here I'm getting 20-1 odds on a team that might go 5-0. Why wouldn't I get that position so I could hedge it later? Think about it. A $50 bet at 20-1 would give me possible winnings of $1,000. Right? Let's say Atlanta gets home field. Wouldn't be the first time, right? Matt Ryan had home field in the playoffs the year that Kaepernick beat the Falcons. Right? Let's say Atlanta gets home field. Let's say they go up against, Seattle or Green Bay. Understand, at that point, I would know I have possible winnings of $1,000 on the Atlanta part of the ledger. So I can then bet a few $100s on their opponent. Right? Let's say I'm able to get Seattle at even money because they're on the road, and you know the way hype works. The team that gets home field advantage is always heavily regarded by the betting public. Right? Let's say that I lock in 20-1 here. So I bet 50 to win 1,000. Then let's say they play Seattle in the playoffs. I could bet $400 on Seattle at even money. Let's think it through. If Seattle wins, let's say I think Seattle's a better team. If Seattle wins, I make 400 minus 50. I net $350. If Atlanta wins, if Atlanta pulls the upset, okay, I'll say, wow, so Seattle didn't win the game. Guess what, folks? I net, $1,000 minus the 400. Right? Think it through. It's a hedgeable play. Anyway, that's how I see it. I hope you take a look at Atlanta both for a position here on futures as well as to win their division, coupled with, hedged with, Carolina to win the division, because I'm telling you, if both teams win this weekend, you're not going to get better than even money odds on both next week. Right? Also, in the NFC West, I hope you think hard about getting a position right here on futures to win the division, on the Seattle Seahawks and on the Arizona Cardinals. Understand, the only reason you're getting this price on Seattle is because Seattle's 0-2. Right? They're taking on Jimmy Clausen at home. Whether or not you think they cover the spread, I think you have to believe that Seattle, with one of the best home field advantages in the entire league, likely wins the game. You're not going to get a minus 133 next week on Seattle to win the division, folks. Anyway, just food for thought. Let me know what you think. I hope you leave your comments here in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.